Hi. The reason why I am making this video is because I want people to know that the unfair treatment that you can receive from your banking institution is really real. It's not acceptable, but it is really real. And sometimes you might not even recognize that you are being mistreated by your banking institution. In this case, my bank institution is State Employee Credit Union. Now, normally I bank with the one close by my house in Monroe, North Carolina on Dickerson Boulevard, but this particular occasion I had lunch with my husband on this day, and he gave me money to deposit into my bank account because I was going to a prayer retreat the weekend. So, in order to move forward with getting everything taken care of for the weekend, I went to the State Employee Credit Union off of Matthews Township Parkway, 1825 Matthews Township Parkway to be exact, in Matthews, North Carolina. Anyway, I didn't expect anything different from going to this branch versus the one on Dickerson Boulevard, which I love. I like the tellers there. I'm usually in and out of there very smooth. They're very knowledgeable, and I really like them. Nevertheless, when I went inside, it was not very busy. It was not quite lunchtime yet. Well, actually, no, it was about 12:30 in the afternoon when I went in. And I filled out my deposit slip and everything. And there were two tellers working at the time. There was a Caucasian lady on the left, and then there was a Caucasian man on the right. And nevertheless, the lady asked if she could help me. I stepped up to the counter, and I told her I need to make a deposit. And I gave her the money, and I swiped my debit card. And I began to ask her if I could get another card. And she explained to me that that card was just temporary till you get your ATM card. And I was like, okay. So we had a little bit of light conversation about my questions about my banking and things that I had on my mind. So anyways, then she asked me for my current phone number. And she began to read out what is my current cell phone number now. And I just listened to her. When she got finished, I said, yes, that's it. And then she said, what's your current work number? Then I began to get a little bit, okay, why? And she read out from the computer screen my work number. I looked at her and I said, yes. And I said, that's it. I said, is this for an application or something? Because a couple of weeks back I had applied to State Employees Credit Union to refinance my car. It's a 2013, but I was trying to see if I can get lower interest rates, and I know that their interest rates are pretty good at State Employees Credit Union. Nevertheless, that's what I thought it was for, but she was like, no. And I was like, okay. So she went right on with her transaction of her making a deposit for me that I requested. I guess she did anyway, because she got to doing something, keying something in. And the teller that was to the left of her, the Caucasian man, he offered to help a customer that came up while I was busy with my teller. And this was a Caucasian lady customer that stepped into his line. And I just began to muffle out everything else and listen directly to their communication and to see how he handled his customer. And little did I know he did ask the same questions that my teller asked me. Once again, my teller was a Caucasian lady. And I am, of course, African American. Now, normally I don't look at any business deals or transactions as a racial issue if there's some type of miscommunication or just anything of that sort, but you just never know. Honestly, you need to be aware of who you're banking with, who your banking institution is, who's on the board. Okay? You need to know. You need to know your privacy policies at your banking institutions. You need to know those types of things. Nevertheless, back to the story. The first thing he asked her was how can he help her? And of course, she was making some banking transactions and everything. And he went right into it. And they were laughing and just giggling about other things. And I was just like amazed. And I was like, huh. Next thing you know, he wrapped up her transactions, the request she had, and she was gone. So, mind you, what my teller was doing took longer than that. And I was just like, wow. Okay, so as soon as my teller finished up, got my deposit slip, I stepped over into that teller's line. And I asked him, I said, excuse me, sir. I said, did you ask your previous customer for her current phone number and her current work number? And he looked at me directly. He said, no. I said, well, why would Debbie, and the teller name is Debbie Fairs. I said, why would Debbie ask me for my current phone number and my work number? Well, guess what? I started hearing some laughing, and I was like, who would be? And I looked, the teller that had just asked me for my personal phone number and my work number that were accurate, that she read out to me, was laughing at me. She was laughing at me, asking the other teller the question as to why he didn't ask his customer the same question she asked me. I'm assuming everybody's following protocol. She started laughing out loud. I mean, it was like, and I looked at her, and my response was, I don't see any humor in me being concerned about why you're asking me for my current number and my work number. And then I looked back over to the gentleman teller, and then he began to say his response as to why that could have happened. He says, sometimes the system prompts you to update a customer's information. Okay, I'm fine with that. Just tell me what you're doing, because there's privacy policies in place. We just received a new ATM card with a chip in it because there's been security breaches. I mean, let's face it, it happens all the time. We don't believe you're always protected. This banking institution only is insured up to $250,000, something like that. You might want to check into that. Just a word of wisdom. Check and see what your privacy policies are at your banking institutions and so on and so forth. Nevertheless, that's the excuse he gave me. He said sometimes the system prompts that. Well, Debbie Fairs did not break that down and explain that to me. All she did was ask the questions, and because me as a customer, unknowledgeable about this new system that they're trying to set in place and all this other stuff, I'm just like, okay, what is the reason? And then in turn to be laughed at because I just needed a second opinion from another teller because they did not treat their customer the same way that I was treated. And then to be laughed at because I had the question, I was totally embarrassed. I felt very little because I did not know. I didn't know what the purpose of her wanting my phone number and my work number? What would my work number have to do with anything? I've been banking with State Employees Credit Union for over 5 or 6 years now. And I've found them to be trustworthy so far because I've always dealt with the one in Monroe. Like I said, I was preparing to go to a beach retreat. And so my husband was giving me money and I was putting it in the bank account and just moving right along with my day. Well, this put quite of a damper in my mood. And honestly, I felt like she was probing me. I felt like she was picking at me. So after the other teller explained to me his version of why she could have asked me for my personal information, I said thank you. I replied to him, thank you. But I was feeling bad at that time. I started feeling really bad. I felt outnumbered, actually. I felt outnumbered. And so I walked away from the counter where he was standing. And they have their nameplates in front of the counter where they work at. And I seen the teller that was laughing at me, the name teller's plate there. And it read Debbie Fairs. Debbie, D-E-B-B-I-E, Fairs, F-A-I-R-E-S. So I read it out loud to her. I said, Debbie Fairs? And she looked at me because she had just finished laughing and she was smiling like this. She said, yes. And I just dropped my head. And I walked right on out the facility. I literally crumbled when I got in my car. Because, I felt like that she treated me like, because I didn't know their policies, didn't know their protocol. And that because I needed something, I came into the banking center because I needed to make a deposit because of some things that I had planned to do. I felt like she made me feel little, smaller than her, because she knew what their policies and what their practices was and everything in place. That I should feel little and unknowledgeable and small because I didn't know. And I felt like she used her position, me trusting her with my money. I just felt like she used her position to overtake me because I did not know why she needed my phone number and my work number.